一つたった一つのたった一人たった一人の私はここ
Reparations on the table, nigga, we ain't seen shit. Put us under pressure, nigga, we ain't even sweat. Came out shining like a diamond in the middle with some mess. On Martin Luther King, bitch, we coming for our check. Headed to the Capitol to stake my feelings in the mind of a radical. You can't ride with me. I'm my only witness when I handle my business. Pull it from the hip, say bye-bye, Billy. No more time for no coasting, I'm on the highway focused. I ain't even smoking, I'm just riding my emotion. Both eyes open, I'm just trying to keep calm. Put an extra set of eyes on them doing recon. Knee deep in snow, say you try and keep going. Told him get up out the cold before my nigga deform. Every old wound seem to getting retorn. I'ma write deep poems to a nigga reborn. I'ma make a statement before I make it out alive. No Channel 5, I would rather make it live. Before the news try to make a nigga out alive. But the pain in my eyes on a much bigger prize. 501, both hands in the sky. Little do they know it's no plan to survive. I ain't finna give them no chance to decide. I'ma put they feet in both hands in the fire. Dancing in the fire like Eshak. You gon' test the water, never get both feet wet. We done overexposed the city defense to the overexposure indecent. They don't know they diving in the deep end. Ain't no way that they surviving through the weekend. Everything glowing in the flash like a beacon. Drowned in the flames, it's too late to let it sink in. Got 10 ways I can be vengeful. Sitting on 10 grenades, every last pinful. This guerrilla war, they don't know what they in for. I can hear them at the door trying to move in slow. I can hold them off, I got 3 shots. Taking every soul for at least 3 blocks. I can smell the fire burning through the sheetrock. Seeing bodies in the flame, nigga try and reach out. This is how you practice what you finna speak out. Thinking about the facts that they try to leave out. This is for my roots running through the deep south. Dying for a cause, what we finna beef out. If you ain't about the cause, what you finna beef out. Showing up deep, we gon' bring the streets out. Every man line up, showing what your street out. An independent state, what a nigga need now.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Yeah. Watch.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Yeah. Watch. Y'all already know what time it is, man. Watch. Tell them keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama. Everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them out. Cause everybody I lit them out. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama. Everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them out. Cause everybody, I let them out. Niggas can't stand on shit, we leave them stressed out. Finna get a medal of honor, we bringin' facts out. And you get stepped on every time you step out. You not a stepper where you from, you a step down. And stop reppin' where you from, you a let down. Can't be seen where you from, you keep your head down. That fat nigga mention my name, I'm breaking lead out. RIP another boss nigga, I think he bled out. He ain't gon' make it, I'm taking another head count. COVID so hot, I keep him from leaving beds out. Niggas self-snitching on live, bringing the fans out. They the last nigga took a O talking about how he dead now. You don't know your life too short, that had me stressed out. Somewhere he took a wrong turn, I on the death route. Try the little boy yard blue, I bring the chef out. Put a whole drum on the 9, that bitch attack now. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them out. Cause everybody I hit them up. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness on my mama. Swear to God, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them out. Cause everybody I let them out. You can cry all you want, but I don't do tissue. So the guy you don't get through if you let blue get you. I put Nino on that mag, let my boo get you. Making Playboy moves with that new issue. When you surrounded by them snakes, you don't know who bit you. And that's the problem with you fakes, you don't know who hit you. And if I'm trying to make it shake, I don't care who with you. Call me Bruce MBD Sam, I got 2 pistols. AOI, a bunch of lanes, don't let that shoe fit you. And you better keep them tight, don't let that shoe fit loose. I can't miss, everything got shoe hit you. I ain't friendly, ain't shit, about blue been cool. And you know I don't forget I'm like an elephant. Ayo, and the eye really irrelevant. Assed out, and we know we lacking intelligence. Keep them out your circle before you regret you let them in.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Power to the dark side, family. Power to the dark side. Shout out to everybody. I definitely got to give a special praise to the most beautiful goddess of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, Stemia, whose image is the most beautiful Whoopi Goldberg. Definitely shout out to everybody that's in the building. Shout out to CB420. Shout out to Hood Therapy in the building. You know, and whoever else is cloud watching, shout out to you too. We're gonna be knocking out a few things. I just want to kind of get in. Let me share my screen. Got a few things I kind of want to get into as far as when we dealing with capitalism, right? In general. Let me see which one am I on. We're gonna go with this one. Nah, actually. Hold on, we're gonna go actually with this one first. Kind of want to give a little lay down. Show up here. All right, cool. Let's deal with capitalism, right? So, starting out real quick, when we talk about capitalism, right? An economic and the political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state, right? This is an era of free market and capitalism. Now, when you're talking about trade and industry, that not only includes the products, but that also like the products, the resources, the raw material, how it's exchanged and what currency is used, but also this is the labor. This is the labor, right? So also think about the labor class, and in a way, they're able to, and also the merchants also kind of play a part. Even though I guess the merchants would be in a better position, but they kind of play a part also. So, so when we talk about like an individual owner, like the means of production in general, right? So we talk about like a McDonald's franchisee annually would earn like $150,000, excuse me, $150,000 basically annually, right? And so basically that's based off of him basically having 18 employees. They both make about roughly, he'd make about 8,000 off of them each roughly a year, right? And in return end up getting 150,000, right? So when we talk about capitalism, it produces a world where if you cannot work, right, or you don't have any resources, you have zero value, right? Produces a world where you have zero value. And not only do you have zero value, but you're also targeted. And, and where the issue comes in at is people are targeted in these different situations. And what a lot of this means is that you're not somebody that should be sheltered, somebody that should be fed, or somebody that should be clothed, right? Meaning you shouldn't get access to what we deem as the basic necessities to life, right? All of these things get determined on what we deem as value. So we talk about in 1865, we own 0.5% of the nation's wealth, right? That's coming out of the out of slavery. Basically, in 1865, we own 0.5% of the nation's wealth. Today, that has only grown 1%, right? So today we own 1.5% of the nation's wealth, right? And actually, I think if you kind of go in actually more updated, we're actually back down to like point 0.5, but that's another story. So, some of the issues that we have and why we put up with things like capitalism is they try to make an argument of what other countries look like, based on capital. Well, capitalism brought us running water. Capitalism brought us a excellent hospitals. Capitalism brought us, the best education. Like, they try to attribute these things to capitalism, but in actuality, no, that's not the case, um, at all. So we talk about it in general, right? So they go to make an argument about, um, whether or not, was plumbing, and you imagine what it'd be like in Cuba, or Russia or Africa or whatever it is. But we have some of these same similar problems here, right? We talk about a toilet but no proper plumbing, right? This is a reality for over 500,000 U.S. homes, right? There is no formal count of residents without proper plumbing and lounge, but Kevin White, an environmental engineer professor at the University of South Alabama, said that a survey, right, that he did in the neighboring countries a year ago found that 35% of the homes had septic systems that were failing with raw sewage on the ground. Another 15% had nothing. Now you talking about in a capitalist system, correct? You can't be living like this in a capitalist system, because it's supposed to it should have eliminated these type of problems. Now let's talk about Miss Rudolph, right? That was the young lady that you got to see in the first picture, right? So when we talk about Miss Rudolph, one of 500,000 Americans, well, of 500,000 American homes, remember that, homes lacking a proper plumbing system, right? Here in Lowndes County, part of the strip of mostly poor majority black counties that cuts through the rural center of Alabama. Now, when we talk about these type of communities, right, a lot of times these communities were thriving, and because these communities didn't get the proper government funding and the proper government assistance that every other community was able to receive, these communities' property value not only plummeted, but also they also weren't in control or able to capitalize off of their municipal bond, even though they were paying a lot of majority of the taxes in these different counties. They're paying majority of the taxes. They're receiving the least amount of the benefits when it comes down to their municipal bond. So now we talk about less than half of the population is on a municipal sewer line. It's less than half, right? So we can already imagine who less than that half is when we talk about in these type of counties. Now, wow, and I will say, well, yeah. So wow, that is not a hardship for more affluent communities. And matter of fact, that's just like my uh my my older brother, his grandma, on his father's side, actually, his grandma is actually in a similar situation. She got a lot of land and all of that, but she's still boiling water. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything, like, is it's a different story when you go up in the wood. You know what I'm saying? She got a lot of land, nice house, all of that. But his folks is got money too, but she not leaving her property or land, and getting a sewer line and running a proper sewage system. That's what the fuck your municipal bond is supposed to be paying. That's why the fuck you pay taxes. That's why the fuck you pay taxes. So people can have a proper sewer line. So anyway, while that is not a hardship for more affluent communities, about 1 in 5 American homes are not on city sewer line. The legacy of rural poverty has hold on, sorry, let me move this real quick, has left its imprint here. Many people have failing septic tanks, and are too poor to fix them. Others, like Ms. Rudolph, have nothing at all. I mean, this is crazy. But meanwhile, on the other fucking side of the track, you already know in the same county, here go to 44%. Here go to less than half. I said 44. I don't know what the percentage is. They said less than half. You know, they didn't want to tell us what. Less than half. Here they go right here. So we talk about this whole racial wealth gap, right? And what helped the gap grow? What helped? Now we got to talk about what things that helped the gap grow to what it is today, right? And why, why we're such at odds with the system in general. So certain things that kind of happen, we'll kind of get into a few of them. I'm gonna run over them right now, though. We talk about like the Homestead Act, right? Enacted during the Civil War in 1862, provided that any adult citizen or intended citizen who had never borne arms against the U.S. government could claim 160 acres of surveyed government land. Claimants were required to improve the plot by building and dwelling and cultivating the land. After 5 years on the land, the original filer was entitled to the property, free and clear, except for a small registration fee. Title could also be acquired after only a 6 month residency and trivial improvements, provided the claimant paid the government $1.25 per acre. After the Civil War, Union soldiers could deduct the time that they had served from the residency requirements. Right now, let's go. So now, when we okay, now first of all, when you talk about let me actually take that back real quick, right? Oops. So when you're talking about the Homesteading Act, right, or people who was able to homestead, right? Not all of us, number one, and I want to say, according to like I think it was like the 1866 census. I may be a little bit off, but it was maybe about it was maybe 1 million or 2 million actually living on homestead housing. And what you'll see is gradually over time, this was like shredded down to, like, I think by the time you get to Tulsa, Oklahoma, this is like down to like the thousands, right? We're in the thousands now. So that is still on Homesteading Act due to just different ways that the government was. Shout out to Who Raised You, boy. Power to the dark side, God. Appreciate you in the building, definitely. So when we talk about like the Homesteading Act, through various ways in the system, most Black people lost that property, right? And we're gonna go into a few different ways that they lost it. Now, the main way that most Black people lost their property is by the property in itself being devalued, right? Being devalued. And this is the issue when we talk about a free market, right? There is no such thing as a free market in this system. The market is not free. And when we talk about Black people, we don't control the market. We don't control the market, right? You don't have the say so in the realtor coming out and pricing your property. Think about that. There's a system already in place that's going to let you know exactly what pricing your property should be at before you sell it. And so once your neighborhood or community is deemed as undesirable or um, um, uh, the people there are illegitimate, whatever the case may be. Not only do you not get the proper funding, the proper government grants, or any of that, but the property value drops through the floor. So now let's get into it. We talk about this. This is called breaking through and breaking down the Delmar Divide in St. Louis, right? This is some of the attacks. Because a lot of times we look at, and I always mention this, we look at the P. Diddy's and the Master P's and we ask, why won't they, clean up their own neighborhood? Well, it's a lot harder than what the fuck you think. So it's a lot deeper and it's a lot harder than just spending millions on just cleaning things up. It don't work like that. So now there's a whole system in place that you have to play by these rules. Now, when we talk about in 1916, St. Louis became the first city in the nation, right, to pass a racial segregation ordinance by voter referendum, right? It was nullified it was nullified the following year thanks to the Supreme Court case of Buchanan and Warren, right? But St. Louis realtors, and actually I got a show coming up on that, so I'm not even gonna go into that yet. But St. Louis realtors and developers simply reverted to the use of steering and racial covenants to enforce the Delmar Divide. What are we talking about? Steering and racial covenants. Shout out to Jay Kyle. Definitely appreciate you in the building, God. Steering and racial covenants, right? These are not only these are the people that are doing this are the people who are in control of the market, right? This so-called free market, this is what this so-called free market is getting ready to do to your community. And the problem is that your community, that they deemed your communities in these situations as undesirable and all of that before they were. And now, because they didn't get the proper funding and the proper government grants that other communities did, because this is how other communities built wealth. Don't let nobody tell you anything different. You talk about wealth, there's two ways wealth is built. It's either by military conquest. You either take it, simple. You're either taking wealth or it's through the government. It's through the government. So we see the first act. They gave out land, boom. Most white people first off already was benefited on it the most. And the few black people who were able to benefit off of it either lost their land through property value, through infrastructure, or through just plain manipulation. Or even just fucking getting just ran off they shit. So there's multiple ways this kind of goes. But I want to kind of keep going into this Delmar Divide, right? So when we talk about, right, the New Deal guys and home work, right, in an attempt during the Great Depression. So when we talk key factor, because this time, right, where black people and other people are all renters, right? We're renters. And so what they do is they start creating these new homes and start telling people, hey, instead of you've been paying maybe it is $60-$70 a month. This is what they were telling and let's just be real, this is what they were telling white people, that you were paying $60-$75 a month on rent. How about you pay $35 a month for a mortgage, right? You'll pay $35, and over time, not only that, you'll be able to build more value and wealth. So people they were able to go from renting in and these are real prices. Like $65 a month was the rent, and they were able to pay $35 in mortgage a month, right? And so also what starts to kick off, right? You start to get two types of credit. So people who are deemed white, they start to get a certain type of credit called revolving credit, right? And on our side, black people got what they call installment credit. So installment credit is more like your rent center and your payday loans and different shit like that, right? Revolving credit was different. Revolving credit was they were able to use that as a means of also gaining wealth. And so installment credit, we basically had to put up everything in order to get a damn refrigerator. And this is at a time where now Americans in general are starting to get refrigerators and ovens and stoves and all kind of shit like this into their home. And so of course these are the basic necessities now are becoming what are the basic necessities of comfort for this country, right? And so we want to take a part of that. But a lot of us, right, we're not getting the same contract that they were getting. And this becomes an issue for us because this keeps us in debt, puts us in tremendous debt, and also causes us to lose a lot of things. So not paying on the refrigerator, you could lose the home and the car. So that's basically what it was. In order for us to build credit, we had to bundle things together in order to get it. A lot of people like to think about the bundle deals. Problem with the bundle deals is remember you're gonna pay the phone bill, the cable, and the internet cut off. Shout out to Asiatic Line, appreciate you in the building. Shout out to Kofi Hill, definitely appreciate you in the building. Power to the dark side, God. So, um, so like I said, so so the government began to subsidize and incentivize home mortgages in an attempt to kickstart the economy during the Great Depression, right? So now these people go from renting to actually paying less money to own homes and build wealth, and also are getting an excellent system of credit, right? So to guide the incentives, watch this, to guide the incentives, the federal government hired local squadrons of appraisers, brokers, realtors, and other real estate professionals to designate areas as best, still desirable, and then definitely declining or hazardous. So you can only imagine what our communities were labeled. A lot of our communities that were thriving, fully with thriving businesses, I'm talking about power to the dark side scheme. Appreciate you in the building, God. We talking about thriving businesses, thriving schools, hospitals, different things like that. Shout out to all grit and heart. All heart, grit and grind. Shout out to you, God. Appreciate you in the building. So you got to think at this time, right? We have a lot of great things going for us, like that we're trying to. And I'm not gonna say for everybody and everywhere, but in a lot of places, right, where we were heavily populated at is where we thrived at. A lot of the things that we go to other people for today, we actually was able to go to ourselves for. And so what ends up happening is that they start deeming, and a lot of this is game, right? They start deeming our communities as definitely declining or hazardous, right? And 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 so these places would never get funding, right? These places would never end up being able to get funding. And then the communities, right, that were, shout out to Angel in the house, I appreciate you. And shout out to Lakeisha, definitely appreciate you in the building. And so these places, like, like they, so like the places that were deemed like still desirable, right? You would have to, or best, you would have to show a clear divide between these communities or neighborhoods and the black communities, which just so happen to all be called definitely declining or hazardous, right? No matter what was going on. And mind you, the government, let me just show you, right? To guide the incentives, the federal government hired local squadrons of appraisers, brokers, realtors, and other real estate professionals to designate areas as best, still desirable, definitely declining, or hazardous. So the federal government added value to certain communities and declined the value in others. I want you to really pay attention to that, right? I really want you to pay attention to that. That's exactly what happened. This is government funded. So the government is not only choosing who's going to benefit from the new FDR, from the new FDRs, and they're also seeing who's going to benefit from the new credit system. And the government is also hiring people to see who's going to benefit from the value and the devaluing of the community. And mind you, this is the market being controlled. So there is no fucking free market, yo. That's an illusion. This is a market clearly being controlled and manipulated by the federal government. The problem is the government in this instance is Ford. Which we're getting ready to see is McDonald's, GM. I mean, of course, the big three, Chrysler, all of that. It's gonna be all of that. But as we keep going, we'll see. Definitely appreciate it. So we talk about, despite the fact that the Villa and the rest of St. Louis, north of the Delmar Divide, were home to thriving communities, this area was redlined because it was also home to a predominantly black population. So what does that mean? That they did not get the proper funding to not only be able to keep up their homes, keep up the community, also to add value to these homes. And so what you find out is that the market, right, for some strange reason, when we say that the market the market is inherently racist. Because the only thing that changes the value of these homes, and still to this day, is whether you're black or not. You can have the exact same home side by side, the exact same home, in the exact same condition. And the only thing that will change the value is whether the seller is black or not. Power to the dark side. Shout out to Miss Whitty Reed. Appreciate you in the building. That's it. So we talk about this is now when capitalism begins to start to kind of take its aim, right? So we talk about between 1934 and 1962, the Federal Housing Administration, right? And later the Veterans Administration insured more than $120 billion in home mortgages, 98% of which went to white borrowers for non-white populations. Look at that. That means they put them in position to what? To start renting out, to not only own, but then start renting out homes. So now redlining starved neighborhoods of capital to make necessary repairs to their homes and other buildings over time. This is what destroys your community. Because when you talk about participating in capitalism, we have to have capital. And so a lot of times what happens is the argument is made that, well, we just need to circulate our money and cycle our money amongst each other. Well, that's not what's going to make more money. And in fact, to be honest, the way that money loses value It righteously you lose we lose money the more that we just cycle money. It'd be equivalent to you cash apping me $10. I cash apping that to Miss Whitty. She apping that to Lakeisha. She cash apping that to Angel. Then the Asiatic. Then the scheme. By the time it get all the way up to hood therapy, it, the taxes on it then killed it. It's no longer $10. We've been cycling the money amongst each other, but it didn't make anything. It didn't add value. And if anything that you're holding, if anything in a black hand in this system loses value, doesn't have the same value as in another hand. It's just the way it is. Right? So you talk about this was largely prevented the next generation of buyers from taking over when it was time for these owners to basically sell. Let me make sure I got that right. To move on. Making it impossible to buy when it was time for these people to move on. So you talk about, then this is from the same article, Breaking Through the Delmar Divide, right? In St. Louis. The kind of situation I kept seeing was I saw this house across the street from me, right? And this is right here where I'm finna show you guys about the appraisal gap, right? This is a very serious situation when we talking about the issue and what prevents, say, a shout out to Asia, yeah, that's a fact, man. Systematic wickedness. What prevents a Master P or a Diddy or whoever, LeBron James, from they got all of these millions of dollars. Why don't they just, take their money and rebuild the community since they got all of this money? So so we take a drive through the door St. Louis, right? Let me make sure I ain't skipping that. Okay, yeah, cool. So we talk about right here, right? So this is the appraisal guide, right? Let's get to that. So we talk about, this is the kind of situation that this person kept saying. He saw this house across the street, right, from me. I could get it at 35,000. It needs about $45,000 in work. I was pre-approved for $120,000 mortgage. Listen to this, pay close attention. But then the appraisal comes back, and post-construction appraisal is not going to be high enough, so the loan doesn't happen. Did you guys catch that? I'll explain it again. The house is $35,000. The house needs $45,000 in work. You already have been pre-approved for a $120,000 mortgage. But then the appraisal comes back, and post-construction appraisal is not going to be high enough, so the loan doesn't happen. Does anybody know what the problem is? Why this person, and say a lot of times this ends up being a house, right? That this was a house that was right across the street from somebody. Right across the street from somebody. Shout out to the realest in the building. Power to the dark side, sis. Right? Does anybody know why they cannot purchase the house? Even though the house is only $35,000, They have the cost to fix the house is $45,000, and they've been pre-approved for a loan of $120,000. Shout out to Green 101. Appreciate you in the building, guy. What do y'all think the issue is? This is what we call an appraisal gap, right? This is what we call an appraisal gap. So what happens is, right? So let's take a drive through North St. Louis, right? Or even scour the LRA's online property database. And it's obviously, even without knowing the history, why residents still have a strong desire to acquire and rehabilitate the houses around them or to rebuild what's already been lost. Look, past the overgrown grass and boarded up windows and find many beautiful built solid brick homes, many of them in the Victorian style of the late 19th century, right? These were excellent, thriving communities, beautiful looking homes. These are the places. Now, I want you guys to remember these communities got labeled as hazardous or definitely declining, right? So these homes were starved out of the capital that the government put into other communities. Don't let them tell you, and that's why I be trying to tell y'all, you have to understand capitalism. Shout out to T Duck in the building. Appreciate you guys. You have to understand capitalism when you having a discussion with people, because a lot of times they'll try to make it seem like, no, we just didn't know the system. We just didn't understand the writing. We were just too stupid. Now we so smart and we have all of this financial knowledge and shit. And so now niggas is talking like they gonna economic their way up out of this. No, nigga, ain't nobody work that. Like, I ain't saying people didn't work hard. That's not what I'm trying to say. We all worked hard. What put them over the top and what caused the gap the way that it is government assistance. Don't let them keep fucking fooling you. These were government handouts. They were giving these homes. They were paying more money, and the government put them in the home for more than half the price of what they were paying. Then gave them credit that they was easily able to pay back. I'm talking about gave them credit, like, yo. So they were easily able to not only build credit, they were gaining wealth by building credit. The communities that they was in was deemed desirable, so they were gaining value, and the government was also providing them capital to continue to fix up these homes in order to continue to add value to these homes. So over time, they were able to do all kind of different things with these homes, fix them up and add on to the homes. And all of these things were adding value. And meanwhile, on your side of the tracks, you're being starved of capital. So many homes of the north of the Delmar Divide that are valued at $2,000 are literally identical to those on the south of the divide that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The only difference, see, and this is why you have to understand, the only difference is black people stayed in one house and white people stayed in another. Look at that gap. $2,000, while ones that are identical are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right? And so what happened here is the reason why they weren't able to purchase the house, right? So I want to go back to this real quick. When you talk about an appraisal gap, right? The reason why they weren't able to pay for to purchase this house and the mortgage came back, the loan just doesn't happen, and that this loan does not show up on your credit or anything like that. It just acts like it never went in, like it was never in the database, right? What the problem is that the cost of the home, right? The cost of the home costs less than actually what it's going to cost to fix the home. And therefore, the bank cannot allow you to purchase the house. The banks are the ones who bought all of these houses up. After they devalue these homes, now the banks own these homes in what we call our so-called community. Now the banks own them. And so now they just allowing these homes to just sit there and continue to lose value. Shout out to Nico B. Appreciate you in the building. They just want to allow it to continue to lose value, right? And so this is why a lot of the times our communities can't come back, because most people, when you're purchasing a home, part of it is not only building wealth in a lot of ways, but also you're building credit. So you got the $120,000 loan that you needed. The house is only $35,000. It's only going to cost you $45,000 to fix it. But that $10,000 more to fix it than the house is actually worth, the bank can't allow that loan to go through. This is where the issue comes in at when we talking about capitalism for black people, right? So I'm not even gonna do him. Yeah, you know what? I will do him like this. So this is this wicked ass nigga Yuhukanan's premise, right? This nigga sent me this for a fucking debate. I just want y'all to see this. Is capitalism in the way that it operates, man, I guess the way that it operates is good for African Americans in 2021? His answer is yes. His premise is that capitalism was good for African Americans that participate. Number one, all African Americans participate in fucking capitalism. You're the means of production, nigga. Let's keep going. That participate by buying stocks, starting businesses, or owning a black-owned bank. No, nigga. No. Capitalism ain't good for you. Period. But anyway, let's keep going. Capitalism, right? An economic and a political system in which, right, a country's trade and resources, as we just went into. So we want to talk about this in two parts, right? So politically, the government, like I was able to show, not only the Homesteading Act, right, the redlining or the HUD, right, but a key one, we talk about the urban renewal projects and also the highway acts of the 50s and the 60s. These are all critical government things that were implemented, not only that drained our capital that drained our capital and also our property value and also our ability to be able to be self-sufficient as we claim other communities are. These same programs also is what allowed them to thrive. What people fail to realize is when you talk about these are the systems that actually built when we were reading about them getting the homes and the government putting them in the mortgages and all of that, creating the credit system and all of that for white people. People don't understand that this is how the middle class was built. The government built the middle class. So now we talk about economic. We own less than 1% of the nation's wealth now, right? We own less than 1% of the nation's farmland, right? And we are 13% of the population, but represent 38% of the fucking prison population. Why? Because capitalism. So federal and local policies were used to drain the capital from black communities, right? So we can't buy our way out of poverty. You don't have the capital. Now, I've already mentioned, shout out to Shay Love in the building. Power to the dark side, Al Capone, appreciate you in the building. We've already talked about it. The simple fact that regardless, right? Regardless of it, how much we cycle money, it's only the dollar, number one, loses value, right? And so that's not how we build wealth. The way that we think about building wealth is all wrong. We have a black banking idea. We have this black business idea. We have a lot of different ideas on how we capitalize on each other. But they didn't build wealth off of capitalizing off of each other. They built wealth through government handouts. They would have never had that value for government if it wasn't for government handouts. But how do we fall into the trick bag that we're going to bank black and we're going to, have all of these black businesses and that'll close the wealth gap? Well, nah, hell no. But what they get this from is because President Nixon's response to Burn Baby Burn was black capitalism. So the idea, right, that if we can circulate our money amongst ourselves is just a dream. It's just a dream. Number one, you don't have any money, nigga. Stop playing. So now, the problems with capitalism, it's exploitive nature, right? It exploits, right, people. It exploits humans. It exploits property. It exploits resources. And it does that at the expense of human rights, of human property, or whatever, like it, whatever it is. Like if it's our water supply and that's something that we like seriously need, or that's something that we are seriously that we are seriously like desiring, whatever it is, they're exploiting that. Like they're exploiting the water supply, the food supply, all of that, and they exploit the fact that you need it, right? And so we talk about capitalism. There must be a permanent underclass, right? There has to be a permanent underclass. It seeks out a permanent underclass. There's no way for the system to function correctly without having people who don't understand how to use their money. You need people to lose money. You need people to lose property, misuse property. You need people to not understand what type of resources that they are sitting on. All of this is so somebody can take advantage of it, right? Now, it infringes upon people's rights, right? Which we're going to get into, because we haven't really gotten all the way into how we lost the homesteaders who owned all of this property. We either lost it because it was devalued and so the banks had to come in, collect these homes, or they lost it due to infrastructure, right? Which plays into not only urban renewal, but when we talk about the highway acts of the 50s, niggas love the freeway, hopping on that slab. Niggas is always talking about I-10. Well, nigga, they built I-10 on top of you. So money is more important than the lives of others, meaning that, a company, as I mentioned this before, a company like Bayer, right, after they've tainted pills with AIDS, because they don't want to lose money, and money is more important in a system like capitalism, they found countries to go and sell those pills to and infect people with AIDS. bottom line is what's most important. We know that the money is what's most important. Everywhere that a Coca-Cola center shows up, the water supply automatically begins to decline. The drinkability of the water declines. All of these things begin to happen. So we talk about roads to nowhere, how infrastructure built on top of American inequality, from highways carved through thriving ghettos to walls segregating black and white areas. U.S. city development has a long and diverse history. This is by John Miller, right? This was February 2018. So now, this concrete wall barrier, right, in 8 Mile, Detroit, built to divide black and white neighborhoods. Now, this is what I'll be talking about, right? So, like what we were just getting at when we was talking about like the Delmar divide in St. Louis, you'll find these divides in most cities, right, that you go to, in order for the government to know that it's okay for them to send the resources into certain communities, right? And so sometimes if these communities, as I was mentioning earlier, are too close to a community that is deemed clearly declining, or a community that is deemed hazardous, then these communities are forced to build a wall in order for them to receive the proper government funds. So they have to they have to build some, they have to show some clear separation between them and these black neighborhoods, or they will not get the benefits of the government. They will not get the resources, and their property value will decline. So that has to show up. That has to be something that you're able to show up clear. And so what they do in a lot of these instances, they came up with ideas to build things like a wall, right? And there were many other little clever ways that they did it, but I'm going to save it for later on in this presentation. So let's deal with the wall. Many of the worst decisions in the U.S. planning were made decades ago to intentionally disenfranchise, marginalize, and separate communities. Policies such as redlining and blight clearing, right, are well documented embarrassment. So let's look at redlining. So we talk about redlining. Remember what we seen. A was best, right? The green was best. Blue was still desirable. Yellow was definitely declining. And D was hazardous. And what you'll find is when you're dealing with definitely declining and hazardous, these were communities that were black communities. And at these times, these communities were thriving. In businesses, hospitals, schools, parks, theater, music, clubs. All of that. So commissioned by the federal government, right? Commissioned by the federal government. In the 1930s, these maps were critical to decisions of where and what type of infrastructure, lending, and housing each neighborhood of each American city would be able to receive. Now, this is the free market for your ass right here. This is the free market. Now, they're getting ready to not only move and displace you, right? But also they're getting ready to kill your market value. They're getting ready to destroy your market value of your community, right? And this was commissioned by who? By the federal government. So specifically, it would be impossible to secure federally backed mortgages, a sort of scarlet letter branded across huge swaths of the city, right? So they made it hard for them to get these federally backed mortgages, right? And so they ended up trying to purchase homes, still trying to purchase homes, but the deals that these people are signing, right, aren't good deals. And the deals that other people were getting were great deals. So now developers avoided these areas and concentrated. And so you could basically say, like, one of the worst purchases people say to make, right? When you talk about like building credit and different things like that, is a car. A car loses value the minute that you buy it. Right? A car loses value the minute that you buy it. A home is supposed to gain value the minute that you buy it. It doesn't, the system does not work that way for black people. The minute that you buy a home, it loses value. And you affect the value of the people's homes around you. This is why in a lot of instances there were serious like people that was like and then this is when you start getting into the neighborhood watch communities and different things like that. These were different systems that they were building to scare black people out of their fucking neighborhoods. And this is why to this day, anytime a community gets to anywhere between I think it's 12 and 18% black, all of the white people leave. You get a certain, this is something that they call white flight. They all leave. And the minute that they leave, the property value plummets. Now, developers avoid, and what's worse about them being able to develop the property, plummet the property value, not giving you the proper resources that you need, they're able to blame you and say, well, look at how you live, and this is the filthiness that you choose to live in. Well, no, fucker. The only reason why you don't live in this filthiness is because the government paid to make sure your ass don't have to. Simple and plain. And the worst part is that they're doing it using our municipal bond. So developers avoided these areas and concentrated investment into white areas, and services stagnant. Right? So now this is I-90, 98, right? And I-88, the merge in West Oakland, California. We running through a few of them. Now in West Oakland, California, we're on the other side of the map. West Oakland, California is a typical example of a red line neighborhood, historically a working class community of immigrants and African Americans. It stagnated after being redlined. By the 1950s and the 60s, during the interstate building boom, excuse me, during the interstate building boom, right? There are more than 1 million miles of federal aid highways in the U.S. And which cost over $105 billion a year to maintain. So they spend $105 billion a year to maintain some shit that they slapped on top of your community. Because when you talk about West Oakland, right? Let me take this back. No, that's the wrong way. I'm going too far. Listen to me. Boom. So when you talk about West Oakland, right? This is a historically working class community of immigrants and African Americans. But not only that, the businesses there were owned by us. Flourishing. Now, what they saying stagnant? They didn't just stagnate. No, when they put these freeways and these interstates, because not only what they did was they ciphered the normal traffic that we would get through our cities out. And not only did this cipher traffic out for white people to not have to pass through and patronize any of our businesses, our gas stations, or any of that, but also other black people who were traveling. Because now, if you notice, when you're on the freeway and you're going through the city, the freeway takes you over the top of these neighborhoods. It'll take you, if they need you to get downtown, the freeway will take you. They will build a fucking freeway right over the top of the hood, and you'll fly right over the top. You never have to see. You never have to see the hood on your way to work, on your way home, when you want to go eat. If you're coming in, think about it. Think about as an out of towner going into a city. If you stay the route that you're supposed to take to like a beach or something like that, to some resort, you will never see the hood. You might see a little glimpse of it from off the freeway, but it'd be so far beneath you, you'd be like, damn, was that a, I don't know, I thought I seen a gas station. Like that's what they did. So the regular traffic of people who would come through and patronize these businesses, the gas stations, the restaurants, different things like that, that was eliminated once they create the interstate. This interstate that Ford, the Big Three built, it takes you from them from basically one federally government funded government thing to another. So it's multiple ways, and not only that, it's going to devalue your home because nobody wants to buy a house underneath a fucking freeway. I'm sorry. So you talking about having a value on your house, you're just not gonna have it that way. Shout out to Aboriginal Power. Appreciate you in the building, God. Appreciate you in the building. Definitely. You got Aboriginal Power versus Lex Vortex. Y'all make sure y'all in the building, man. That's gonna be a fire battle. So we talking about the interstate building boom, right? This is something that hurts us in multiple ways. They build these freeways on top of our businesses, on top of our homes, on top of our land, on top of our schools, hospitals, all of that. And then they won't even fund us the way that they funding other people. Because mind you, when you talking about how money is created, guess how money is created? By the government. So now let's talk about generations of black people have faced these challenges, right? Generations of black people have faced these challenges. So this is Baltimore. And what you're gonna look at is things like these are, a lot of these communities are abandoned, and like there's nothing you can really do to really kind of save these communities in a lot of ways. Right? There's not much that you can do to kind of save these communities. So John Bullock, the Democratic Party, I don't know why they mentioned that, is a member of the Baltimore City Council in Maryland, representing District 9. Bullock assumed office in 2016. Bullock's current term ends in December of 2024. Right? So this was not a neighborhood that was struggling, says John Bullock, the city's councilman for Baltimore's 9th District, which includes the Road to Nowhere. We are talking about a middle class neighborhood, which we're seeing through the eyes of others as slums or ghettos because of the color of the people who live there. So you're talking about thriving community, right? And this is so much for your fucking free market bullshit. A thriving community was chilling when somebody else came in and devalued their home before they can even get it on the market, just because of who they were. So the black and white economic divide is as wide as it was in 1968. Ain't shit changing. This is according to the Washington Post. 14 charts show how deep the economic gap is and how little it has changed in decades. The COVID-19 recession is also hitting black families and businesses and owners far harder than whites. In 1968, a typical middle class black household had $6,674 in wealth compared to with $70,786 in wealth. $70,786 in wealth for a typical middle class white household, according to the data from the historical survey of consumer finances that has been adjusted for inflation. So they did adjust with the time, right? They did adjust with the time. So in 2016, the typical middle class black household had $13,024 in wealth versus 149,000, almost 150, basically $150,000 in wealth for the median white household. So this is an even larger gap in percentage terms. So the righteously the gap has fucking grown. The gap has grown. So as of 2016, the most recent year for which data is available, you would have to combine the net worth of 11 and a half black households to get the net worth of a typical white household. And this is not done off of hard work. This was done off of government assistance, government resources, government financing, right? So it would take, to close this gap or to change this, it would take 228 years for black families to have matched the wealth of white families, an analysis said. This is by Kate Davidson. 228 years. Nigga, and you niggas is talking about we gon' like, let's just go. 228 years. That's how long it would take for African Americans to accumulate the same amount of wealth as whites, that whites have now, that they have now, if current policies remain in place. So this ain't even necessarily closing the gap. This is to accumulate what they have now, if current policies remain in place, according to the new analysis, right, for the corporations of the enterprise of development and Institute for Policy Studies. The CFED and the IPS looked at 30 years of data for the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, which includes information on Americans' balance sheets, income, pensions, and demographic characteristics. Wealth of white households increased by 84% during those 3 decades. That's 3 times the gains of African American families saw, and 1.2 times the rate of the growth for Latino families. Yo, what the hell are y'all talking about continuing to try to play this game? We have got to flip the table. We've got to flip the table. There's nobody would play Monopoly in a game like this. And this is why I be saying, like, niggas be like, oh, no, I see it as a challenge. No, nigga, you not giving up. No, nigga, you not finna play this dumb game, bro. I'm not finna play this dumb ass game with you. If I know I can beat you up, bare knuckle fighting, bro, you're not finna make me put on gloves just cause so you can feel more comfortable and you feel better if we fight with gloves on. No, nigga, we going bare knuckle boxing, nigga. We going bare knuckle boxing. We ain't finna play the game the way that you playing it. That's why they want you to continue to do that. They want you to feel like fighting is getting black businesses and getting black banks and circulating the black. No, nigga, that's not fighting. Fighting is saying fuck your dollar and how you value me and my community. You can't value me or my neighborhood. Sorry. We value ourselves. And we deal amongst ourselves. But you can't play the game of the market and then act like it's a free market, and yet you got your enemy pricing telling you what your value is on the market. Your enemy telling you what your house is worth on the market. That's not your friend. Now, if those trends persist for another 30 years, the average white family's net worth will grow by $18,000 per year. But Black and Hispanics household would only see theirs grow by $750 and $225 per year, respectively. You're playing that game. They want you to continue to play that game. As long as you believe that that competing means that you're playing their system and their game, and by their no, nigga, that's not competing. That's being a bitch. That's what that is, nigga. That's being a bitch. You took my shit, and I'm finna try to get up enough money so I can buy it back from you. Meanwhile, I have to work for you in order to gain the money to buy the shit that you took from me. No, nigga, that's some bitch shit. We're not playing that game. I'll take your shit. That's just simple and plain. We're taking it. So we talk about the racial gap continues to grow, not only because of income inequality. The whites have more dollars to sock away, but because accumulated wealth is a mechanism for transmitting economic success from generation to generation. And government fucking assistance. Let's just be 100. It's a vicious cycle. Poor communities have limited tax bases to fund their public school system, which lead to sharp disparities in educational quality. Meaning what? You're paying all of these damn taxes, and your municipal bond is going to other people's schools because the government is in charge of who's getting the resources first. Black communities in the conditions of the education in 2020, the poverty rate is still the highest for Black students. In 2018, nearly 1/3 of Black students lived in poverty. That's 32% compared to 10% of white students and families living in poverty. There is no incentive for people less fortunate. Instead, you learn to live with knowing someone is going without. Because in capitalism, they are your competition. They are. And so even though the things that we're supposed to benefit, well, you wouldn't have this good, clean running water if it wasn't for capitalism. Well, tell that to our niggas in Flint, Michigan. 7 years on, the Flint water crisis has yet to conclude. This is by Natasha Blakely in 2021, October 27, 2020. This is a few months ago. Although it's been 7 years since the Flint water crisis became one of the state's biggest public health disasters. Flint struggled with both the repercussions of the initial incident and with getting clean water have not ended. So niggas, hold on. We're supposed to be benefiting so much off of America and capitalism and all of that. We can't get proper plumbing. We can't get a proper our water system or our water supply is tainted. Right? Our education is shitty. They built the freeway on top of our businesses when we did try to like play the game with them. They just slapped the whole freeway on top of it. Knocked us out the game. What else is it? What else do we got? Water fucked up, no plumbing. We ain't getting the proper resources that the government want to give us. I'm trying to figure out where's our benefits exactly when we talking about in capitalism as a collective. We don't really see it. So yeah, Tyler Perry though, you know, He's got clean water just running up the fucking what you call it. Look at this shit. This nigga got clean water just flowing outside of a damn studio. How many people that can house? But there's no incentive to house people because at the end of the day, money is what's more important. And so we give them, these people, the money, they do with it. They capitalize off of us while devaluing our image, devaluing our homes, devaluing our lives. This is capitalism. Shout out to Terry Smoot. Appreciate you in the building. This is capitalism. Our women ain't getting they're dying at a higher rate giving birth. Think about that. That's one of their main things. Well, you know, the technology now, the women are giving birth. Well, now our women ain't benefiting off of that shit. What are we benefiting off of exactly? To what extent? Our women don't get the benefit off of the technical advancements of giving birth. For some reason, we damn near dying like we giving birth in the jungle or in some cave somewhere. Why? Because they took you away from having your whole circle of community and all of that you had, and put you in a cold ass hospital where motherfuckers don't know you and they waiting and they stomach is growling. They can't wait for lunch, so they forgot to give you your medicine. They forgot to. They didn't really feel like changing your bandages. But this is the situation that we currently live in, that we brag about, we talk about on a regular basis, how good this life is, and we go and talk about other countries. How you gonna drink the water there, nigga? You can't even drink the water in Flint. And to be real, Flint ain't the only place. It's just the only place that they publicize. You know, the water in fucking San Diego, by the time you get the water in San Diego, that shit then went through 14 other faucets at a minimum before it goes through your faucet, comes out your sink. 14 at a minimum. There's 14 times at a minimum that shit then been through the bleaching process, then either been in somebody's ass, nose, mouth, or that went through the bleaching process and fluoride process before it gets to you. 14 times. But that's the better way of living. There's no, we're not getting the same benefits that we brag upon when we talk about other places. A lot of us don't want to leave spiritually. And when I say leave, because I'm not talking about physically leaving. I mean, leaving the way that how much we rely on the system and not enough on each other. We have got to rely on each other, and it's not for the same infrastructure. It's not because, oh, we need to build our own hospital. No, nigga, we just need to make sure that we give birth better. Mama and auntie and grandma, they just gonna have to start back giving birth again. The fuck is y'all doing? What are we doing? Ain't nobody gonna care for you and put you through the proper and make sure things happen the proper way besides mama, auntie, and grandma and them. But see, the system then got you to where you kind of cut off that. You kind of cut off that extended bit of family, and usually you kind of get away from. It's a lot of different ways, or you can't wait to get out of the house, different things like that. And a lot of this is so we can act out our own sexual perversion. This is the real reason why we can't wait to get the fuck out of our parents' house and shit. The tension and the animosity that gets built up is because you didn't create, they didn't allow you to be infected with the fucking sexual lust virus, and you can't wait to get up out of their house so you can walk around naked and do whatever the hell. Irrelevant shit. Irrelevant shit. Like, let's just be real about it on why we don't have more of a community, or we ain't really building more so as a family and this and that. We're turning more so into them. That's why they showing it on TV. They trying to put that shit in our program. Now they show us on TV. We dropping our damn parents off at the old folks' home. I used to go over to my Mexican friend's house. No matter how crazy and old their grandmama got, she was sitting right there in the fucking living room in her chair, talking shit. You're not putting grandmama out, nigga. You're not putting grandpa out. Like, the shit gets crazy. All because you got a fucked up way of viewing sex, and you don't want your mama and them around to see it. Like, and I'm just telling you, that's the real issue. So we talk about relying on each other and sacrificing. You trying to hold. The only reason why you got so many secrets and you got so much business that you got now, nigga, you ain't have this much business in the village. And secrets you had, nigga, all of this wasn't going on in the village. We got to change the way that we even view things. View what we need, view what we want, view how we're treated, view how we treat each other, what we need to feel for each other. So no, the ways that we treat ourselves for different health conditions and problems, that has to change. If we're not benefiting off of this, what's supposed to be such a great system, then the way that we view medicine and shit has to change. You're least likely to get your meds for problems that you actually have because they treat you like some opioid addict. Then you're gonna have to have another process on which you medicate. The problem is healthcare and what kind of care is being done inside of the hospital. We have to change the way that we view giving birth. We didn't let these fools probably, and I don't even know what, I'm gonna have to go look at the numbers because they did a good job of convincing us on how dangerous birth was before they invented whatever weak ass system that we ain't benefiting off of. I'm gonna have to go see these numbers because they probably giving us cave women numbers in the first place. I don't see nobody having no goddamn this many problems as they be saying giving birth. I'm starting to kind of just see them demonizing the way that we gave birth and trying to big up themselves. Because for them to be giving birth so well, so we know that when they talk about the numbers and how successful it is, they ain't talking about us because our numbers ain't shit in this system. And how the hell are they talking about them? Because they ain't even having no goddamn baby. So we got two issues. Capitalism supposedly saved so many lives of birth, but yet we ain't seeing that. We ain't seeing the results in black women, and white women ain't really having babies. Something's a little bit iffy about that. That's all I'm gonna say on that. It's a little bit iffy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. You got a full-fledged system in which we have a lack of control of. You don't have control over the market. You don't have control over the things. And a nigga always say, if I want to sell my eggs for $4, I can sell them for $4. No, the fuck you ain't. If eggs on the market is selling for $5, stupid ass nigga. If you spent $5 for eggs, sell them at $4. We'll see how long we be patronizing your dumb ass business, nigga. You don't set the market. You ain't just gonna sell. You ain't just gonna, because you love black people, I'm just gonna sell eggs for $4. No, nigga, you gonna sell eggs at what at a price where you can make a profit based on whatever price that the market is telling you eggs go for. Quit lying. You ain't got it like that. And we ain't market makers. We don't even move the market. We don't even move the market. Everybody went crazy over the GameStop and the AMC ordeal. You want to know why it slowed down? Because the institutional investors, there ain't enough of them jumping in. See, whatever they was doing, that wasn't because of the retail investors. No, nigga, the retail investors was able to benefit off of whatever beef institutional investors had going on. You're not a market mover. Shout out to Free Spirit. Appreciate you in the building. You don't move the market. Us as a whole, you can put all of the poor people, and we all put our money in on AMC right now, and that motherfucker ain't moving an inch. It won't move a penny. It ain't moving until the market makers move it. Until the institutional investors move it. We're sleeping. You don't have that type of control like you think. I want to actually see if this video will play. And if it will, we'll kind of we'll touch on this a little bit. It'll play clean. Yeah, let me see. This will play clean. Yeah, this will play clean.
The United States Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. According to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico, the Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights. and also a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which largely maintained the right. Alito writes in this draft majority opinion, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overturned. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, which, as Chris was just mentioning there, means returning it to the states. And in more than 24 states, there are what are called trigger laws, which would immediately render abortion a crime, render it illegal, immediately upon the Supreme Court issuing such a ruling. As Josh Gerstein reports, along with his colleague Alexander Ward at Politico tonight, quote, the immediate impact of the ruling would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights. It would allow each state to decide whether to restrict or ban abortion. It is unclear if there have been subsequent changes to the draft. This draft ruling that has been obtained and published by Politico tonight was reportedly drafted in February. Politico received a copy of the draft opinion, quote, from a person familiar with the court's proceedings in the Mississippi case, the abortion case, along with other details supporting the authenticity of the document. The draft opinion runs 98 pages. The document is replete with citations to previous court decisions, books, and authorities, and includes 118 footnotes. The appearances and timing of this draft are consistent with court practice. The disclosure of Alito's draft majority opinion is a rare breach of Supreme Court secrecy and tradition around its deliberations. Joining us now is Josh Gerstein. He's the senior legal affairs reporter for Politico. He's one of the best legal reporters and legal political explainers in the country. He broke this story tonight along with his colleague Alexander Ward. Josh, thank you for coming on tonight on such short notice. I realized that you didn't know 4 minutes ago that you were going to be on TV talking about this with me tonight.
No problem, Rachel. Happy to join you.
I'm not going to press you, of course, on your sourcing here, but I want to press you on your confidence in your sourcing. Obviously, this is a very unusual, if not completely historically unprecedented leak, a document that purports to be the draft majority opinion of the Supreme Court before they have issued any such ruling. Can you just tell us about your confidence in the authenticity of the document?
Well, we're very confident in the authenticity of this draft majority opinion, Rachel, both in the way that we obtained it and other information that we got that supports its authenticity and makes us believe that it is genuine. Now, of course, it's not a final opinion. It's a draft opinion. It was circulated in the court as a first draft by Justice Alito in February, dated February 10th. So it is possible there have been some changes since then, but it's our best understanding of at least where the court stood at that time, which is about 2.5 months after arguments in this pivotal Mississippi abortion case.
And you report, Josh, and again, forgive me if I get any of these details wrong. I am learning this as I'm talking about it, which is always dangerous. But you report that the court majority here is established, that there are, at least in the initial conference between the justices after the arguments, there were 5 votes on Justice Alito's reported side here. And the only ambiguity, the only question is whether or not Justice Roberts would make it a 6-3 decision or a 5-4 decision if he chose to side with the more liberal members of the court. Do you have any, what can you tell us about your reporting in terms of the numbers here, in terms of how the two sides align and whether that may still be a matter with some fluidity?
Well, it's our understanding from a person familiar with the proceedings that Justice Alito believes and that the court has 5 justices that are essentially aligned with this opinion that he's written, which is, just a withering takedown of the Roe v. Wade precedent. It pulls no punches at all. It's pretty brutal. And in the way it's structured, it kind of needs to be that way because of the way Alito confronts this issue of court precedent. Stare decisis is the legal term, and something has to be really, really wrong if they want to overturn it, and that's the case that Justice Alito makes here. There is still some ambiguity about where Chief Justice John Roberts stands. As many people noted at the oral arguments at the beginning of December, it sounded like he was finding a way maybe to approve this Mississippi law which is a 15-week abortion ban, without completely ripping down the Roe v. Wade precedent. Our understanding is that, most of his Republican colleagues want to go ahead and take down Roe versus Wade. Now, that said, we're at the beginning of May here, and this final decision likely won't be published until the end of June, perhaps even the beginning of July. So it's fair to say that this, is a situation that is unresolved at this point, and I can't promise you that various things may not change between now and late June.
Josh, in terms of the substance of this opinion as written,
You
again,
just
this
lied.
draft majority opinion, and with the caveat that this is a historically unprecedented leak of what appears to be a draft majority opinion from the court before any ruling is issued, with the caveat that you just described in terms of whether or not this may go through additional changes, even potentially substantial changes, before we see the ruling from the court as published later this year. With all those caveats intact, when you look at what Justice Alito wrote here, how does this comport with expectations in this case? Obviously, as you were just describing, the leanings of the justices on this matter, I think to realist-minded observers were clear even before oral arguments, and certainly were clear thereafter. But I think it was also perhaps still common wisdom that the justices would try to soft pedal this a little bit, that they would try to undermine Roe and effectively remove the protections
And understand,
of Roe,
this is capitalism.
without a sort of 21-gun
It's a
salute,
political
and which is what this
economic
appears to be,
system.
at least in terms of the way that you've been able to describe Justice Alito's thinking. Is that a fair assessment of this, that this is more of a bludgeon when it was perhaps expected to be something more of a more subtle approach?
It's definitely a swing for the fences draft majority opinion. He's really holding nothing back here, Justice Alito. And, I know what the conventional wisdom was, Rachel, that maybe the court would try to soften the blow. But at those arguments, there was precious little indication of that from any of the Republican appointed justices other really than Chief Justice Roberts. And another reason to think that this may have full support from all the Republican appointed justices except the chief, is if you go through the opinion, you'll find echoes in there of views that other members of the court have stated on previous occasions. There are parts of this opinion that sound a lot like Justice Clarence Thomas. When you read through it, you'll see on a few occasions the word abortionist appears in this opinion. That's a word that Justice Thomas has taken to using in recent years, and that most of the other members of the court don't typically use. And there's another passage that seems to cater to some comments that Justice Amy Coney Barrett made at the oral arguments about the way views on sort of unwed pregnancy, out of wedlock births, and women's rights have evolved since the Roe v. Wade was handed down in 1973. So it really does seem that Alito is trying to cobble together a majority. People can also look at it and see how much do you think it does to address the concerns Chief Justice Roberts has raised about the credibility of the court and the concern about public opinion. I think there's portions in it that don't seem to give full weight to the chief's concerns, which also supports the notion that maybe he's not expecting to be part of this opinion.
Josh, in terms of the likely impact of
they talking about the guy that said all things are still on the table
tonight. If we had a Republican
up until the moment she knows she's pregnant,
House and a Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican in the White House, is there any line in this ruling, as you read it, that would prevent the legislature and the president from establishing a new law that full-on banned abortion in its entirety in every state in the country in every instance?
Well, it's a draft decision, and it doesn't really get into the issue of what the federal government's power, I think, would be in this area. So I think it certainly leaves that open as a possibility. There might be other obstacles to that, like the legislative filibuster we still have, at least for the time being, in the United States Senate. But, there are points at which Alito tries to suggest that, this won't bring all the scenery down. If we move away from abortion to other privacy-based rights, such as contraception, rights like gay marriage, he does try to ring fence this opinion and say, all we're talking about is abortion. He mentions that several times, and he suggests that it shouldn't be stretched into other areas. That said, I'm old enough to know that the court many times has said, don't try to apply our opinion on X to this situation Y because it's different, and yet it often does get applied that way. But there's no question he's trying to keep this confined to the issue of abortion.
And of course, that's telling in itself, right? To be willing to say like, oh, this is just about abortion. It's not about anything important. Don't worry. Tells you a lot about the frame of mind of the frame of mind behind people who would make this kind of a change. Let me just ask you about one last piece of this, Josh. Since we've been on the air, since we received your reporting tonight, since you published, we, on my show, have contacted 4 former clerks for Supreme Court justices, all of whom uniformly told us that the document that you have published tonight appears to be a legitimate work product of the court, meaning it just matches in form and style and texture the kind of product that they as clerks were used to seeing as a draft majority opinion. That highlights in itself, I think, the unique nature of this reporting that you have done and this leak. And I wonder if you have any reflection.
Yeah, we ain't gonna start going through too much more of that. Maybe we get the chips. At the end of the day, it gets dangerous because how the fuck is a woman finna prove that she had a miscarriage? They don't even have the science on that shit. When the dude was asked that question, he hit a wall. And instead of him saying, I don't know, we actually need to go back to the drawing board and think about it, he tried to make some shit up on the spot. Start talking about the chromosomes, the development of the chromosomes over several days, and we basically know. You know what, nigga? They asked about, so what does this mean? He said, this doesn't change really anything. Everything is still on the table until the moment that she knows she's pregnant. Shout out to Nimrod, the grand architect in the building. Everything up until the moment that she knows she's pregnant. This is another attack and another way for them to show how much control that they have over the labor class. Remember when we read the definition, when you're talking about the means of production, you're talking about not only the raw materials and resources, not only the tools, not only the land, but you're also talking about the labor. You are the labor. You are the labor. And so when we talk about these things are being controlled, these things are in control of private corporations with their own select agendas and all of that. And so when you talk about other systems, first off, in a real system, the corporation ain't the fucking government. It's supposed to be the people, the actual people. McDonald's isn't a person. He shouldn't get a vote. But they get a vote as a corporation. And McDonald's vote It's more powerful than your vote. It comes with more money, statue, power. So I think we didn't put it. I think pretty much everything should be put to rest when we talking about capitalism in general. I think the next thing I'll probably do is I'll beat up the basically the tell that we have all of this spending power, and that if black people only stop, if we only stop buying weave and Jordans, we could close the racial wealth gap. I'm gonna eliminate that. I'll show the whole Forbes magazine ordeal how much he lied. It was a farce. It just really was. So with that being said, power to the dark side family. Another special praise to the most beautiful goddess of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, Stimia, whose image is the most beautiful Whoopi Goldberg. Remember, if you are listening to this, together, we are Babel. Let's build.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Yeah. Watch. Y'all already know what time it is, huh? Watch. Tell them keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them out. Niggas can't stand on shit, we living stressed out. Finna get a medal of honor, we bringin' vets out. And you get stepped on every time you step out. You not a stepper where you from, you a step down. And stop reppin' where you from, you a let down. Can't be seen where you from, you keep your head down. That fat nigga mention my name, I'm breaking lead out. RIP another boss nigga, I think he bled out. He ain't gon' make it, I'm taking another head count. COVID so hot, I keep him from leaving beds out. Niggas still snitching on live, bringing the fans out. They the last nigga took a O talking about how he dead now. You don't know your life too short, that had me stressed out. Somewhere he took a wrong turn, I on the death route. Try the little boyard blue, I bring the chef out. Put a whole drum on the 9, that bitch attack now. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I hit them up. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness on my mama. Swear to God, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I lit them out. You can cry all you want, but I don't do tissue. So the guy you don't get through if you let Blue get you. I put Nino on that mag, let my boo get you. Making Playboy moves with that new issue. When you surrounded by them snakes, you don't know who bit you. And that's the problem with you fakes, you don't know who hit you. And if I'm trying to make it shake, I don't care who with you. Call me Bruce MBD Sam, I got 2 pistols. AOI, a bunch of lanes, don't let that shoe fit you. And you better keep them tight, don't let that shoe fit loose. I can't miss, everything got shoe hit you. I ain't friendly, ain't shit, about Blue been cool. And you know I don't forget him like an elephant. Ayo, and the eye really irrelevant. Assed out, and we know we lacking intelligence. Keep him out your circle before you regret you let him in.
Ryu, this is crazy.